I wasn't really expecting to want to make this video today, but I just have some stuff that I gotta say. Ever since the announcement of the new Elden Ring coming out, I have been on a Fromsoft kick and I've been playing Elden Ring, I've been playing Dark Souls 3, and most importantly, in my opinion, I've been playing Armored Core 6. Now, this might be a controversial opinion to a lot of people, but I think the game is so underappreciated and I think everybody should give it a chance. It's definitely probably the most different from any of the Fromsoft games, or at least the main Fromsoft games regarding Sekiro, Elden Ring, the Dark Souls series, and Bloodborne. But this game is also very different than the other Armored Core games, which were a lot more complicated and a lot more of a battle with the controls more than playing the game. But this game feels amazing. I would say this game is kind of like Bloodborne if it had a posture system like Sekiro. So the more attacks you do to enemies, they build up their posture bar, very similar to Sekiro, except instead of parrying attacks like you do in Sekiro, it's based on your offensive pressure and what kind of attacks you're using on them. If you're able to stagger someone, it opens them up and you do massive damage to them. So this game definitely drives you to want to be aggressive, it makes you want to play in a fast-paced manner, and it's really awesome doing all of it. For those who don't know as much about the game and like what it's about, you're basically in these mech suits called Armored Cores, and you fly around and you fight other Armored Cores, you fight large bosses just like in Souls, but this game is a lot more linear. It's on a mission-based system, but the story has some branching paths that, depending on what missions you choose to do, will affect the endings you get. I believe there's 3 of them. But the game is super fast-paced. If you like stuff like Bloodborne, I think you should really give this game a shot because you have basically the quick step from Bloodborne. But in this game, your sidestep and your quick step and stuff entirely depend on the build you do. So throughout the game, there are different parts you can buy for your mech suit that alter how you play pretty much completely. The biggest factor are the legs that you pick. There are bipedal legs, which are like the main legs that most people will probably go with. They're just normal, usually they're just legs. They're pretty all around. You could dash back and forth with them and stuff. There are reverse joint legs, which give you an immense dash if you're on the ground. So if you like playing quick and you like hopping back and forth, so very similar to Bloodborne, I think you would like these legs because they give you probably the most evasive mobility. You could have just like a tank track on your butt and you aren't very mobile, but you have an insane amount of armor and stuff. So if you like going tank builds in games, I think that would be for you. And then the last one are these like hover legs where you could kind of just like hover yourself in the air and be like a flying turret, which for me, that's not like as much my play style, but I could see if you want to do like an uber damage build, you could do something like that. But this game has some cool properties that a lot of the other games don't. For one, if you die in a level, there are checkpoints. It's not like a bonfire system. Like I said before, this is like a linear mission-based game. There's no open world or anything. But if you die in a mission, you can change your build and then go back in, provided you have bought parts beforehand. So if you're in a level and the level was really easy and it required you to have a lot of weapons that take out smaller enemies that are in large groups, you can have a build like that. But if you get to the boss and you die and you're like, hey, this build just like is not doing any damage to the boss, you can literally switch everything about what you're doing so that you can have an optimized build just for the boss fight. In terms of the build variety, the amount of weapons you can have is absolutely absurd. You have 2 weapons in your hands, one for your right hand, one for your left hand, and then you have 2 weapons on your shoulders. There are shields that you can get, which I didn't find were as fun, but I believe you can do like a parry similar to like a Dark Souls parry in this game if you have one of the shields. And they just give you some more offense if you have a slower build that's a little bit less maneuverable. A lot of the levels are pretty quick, which I think the whole game is about 15 hours. I've done 2 playthroughs of it so far. And the regular levels, they're okay. A lot of them are just like, go here, destroy this, go here, kill this guy and whatever. But where I think the game shines the most is, of course, with pretty much every other Souls game or Fromsoft game, are the boss battles. The boss battles are so much fun and they're extremely challenging. This game is kind of like Bloodborne if it was also a bullet hell to an extent, where you have tons of rockets and stuff kind of just like flying around your screen trying to hit you. It's so cool. You feel like such a badass if you're like dashing back and forth, evading rockets, hearing all these beep and stuff go off of your computer telling you this is coming from this side, this is coming from that side. Just how like the movement works, it's like a whole 3D space. You could fly in the air, you could dash on the ground, you have like this thing, it's kind of like hyperspace from like Star Wars, where you can just dash forwards, and if you unlock the ability, you could kick people out of it, so you could just like charge at people with your mechs. I think the most fun part about this game is when you're fighting an enemy AC, or basically the equivalent to doing some of the player battles in Dark Souls. And I'm not talking about the multiplayer in this game, even though there is a whole multiplayer scene. I have not played it, but there are boss fights that will literally just be another guy that's just like you. And that might not sound appealing, but I think this is the only game where they've really mastered how that works because of the build variety and how the game's mechanics work. A lot of the bosses that are armored cores can do all the stuff you can do. So they'll dash to evade your attacks. They'll try to break your posture. They have defensive things, like they can put up a shield just like you can and stuff. They have all the tools you can, but because of the nature of how the game is played, it works. Everybody has a ton of movement. Everyone's trying to dodge your things. It's almost like if you've ever played like an Ace Combat game, like it's like a dogfight almost, where you're moving back and forth really quickly, making split-second decisions as to what you're gonna do, what attacks you want to use. And yeah, it's just like the Armored Core fights, like Armored Core versus Armored Core, are like the best. I love them. And then there are even some group fights where you'll see two guys and like some guy on your team will pull up. My favorite character in this game is Rusty. I think his Armored Core is awesome. He just seems like a good guy. And there's this one fight where two Armored Cores are up to kill you, and they're like, this is about to go down, and Rusty pulls up, and it's just how he flies in is like this coolest. And it just like, it makes you feel like you're in an anime, even though this game has like not an anime art style at all. It feels like Gundam, and I haven't even watched that much Gundam, but it feels like Gundam, or at least what I think Gundam feels like. But yeah, I have some gameplay running in the background. I'll just, at the end of this, I'll put like a clip of one of the boss fights. If you're interested in the game, I would highly recommend picking it up, especially before Elden Ring Night Rain comes out, because I've been looking for stuff to quench my thirst on that. I've played Elden Ring like 1,000 times already. I've played Dark Souls 1,000 times, so I figured I'd boot up Armored Core because no one really talks about it. It's such a cool game. Not my favorite in the Souls series by far. My favorite is Dark Souls 3, followed by Elden Ring, followed by Bloodborne. If you are a Fromsoft enthusiast, you've probably played this game, but this game was not as popular in the mainstream. So I think everybody should try it, especially if you're into like the FromSoft format. It's a little different, but the boss fights definitely make up for the difference in format and the lack of fluidity in it. And the story is pretty cool. Yeah, if you like the video, make sure to subscribe. It really helps me out. At 1,000 subscribers, I'm getting a tattoo about Tekken, so if you want to help me out with that, that'd be awesome. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video.